Chapter 1. The Call Beyond Dreams. The wind over Lake Rumar whispered like a secret. It crept through the reeds, across the old stone of the imperial bridges, and into the restless mind of a scholar who had long forgotten sleep. In the upper room of a tallow-lit inn, Marin of Coral sat hunched over parchment, tracing the sigils of lost cults with trembling, ink-stained hands. He had spent weeks studying the fragments of a vanished sect, worshippers of a Daedric power, whose name had been erased even from the tongues of heretics. His dreams had become strange since then, nights filled with a deep hum that came not to his ears, but to his bones, as though the world itself breathed through him. That night, the hum grew louder. The candle shuddered and went out. Darkness swelled like a tide. Marin's eyes strained, but there was no seeing, only a sense of being seen. Then came the voice, not with words but with intent. A presence vast, ancient, patient. You seek what others fear. He tried to rise, but the weight of the air pressed him down. His pulse echoed in his skull. The inn, the city, the world, all dissolved. In its place came a vision, a field of stars like burning glass, and a shadow moving between them, a crown of flame without heat. Who are you? The question was barely a breath, yet it tore through the silence like thunder. You called to me first, the presence answered, in every question, in every doubt. I am that which answers. He felt it then, the brush of something immense within him, cold and burning at once. Images rushed through his mind, forgotten ruins buried beneath moss and bone, priests with tongues of ash, an orb of light cradled in shadow. When he awoke, dawn had barely touched the horizon. The parchment before him was marked not by ink, but by symbols seared into the surface, curling, living, shifting even as he stared. His heart raced with terror and awe. Outside, the morning bells of the Temple of the One tolled across the imperial city, their echoes rich with sanctity. Yet beneath their sound, faint and sure, another tone thrummed, deeper, older, a voice beneath the world. Marin gathered his satchel with shaking hands. He could not remain. Somewhere beyond the heartlands a shrine awaited, one that called to him in the quiet between heartbeats. And though he did not yet understand, he whispered into the dawn, I will find you. The air trembled in reply. You already have. Chapter 2. The Shrine of Silent Fire. 3 nights' travel carried Marin beyond the reach of imperial roads, where the Gold Coast's forests thickened into solemn walls of green. The moon watched from behind torn clouds, and every whisper of wind through the pines seemed to murmur his name. He followed the map he had not drawn, a thing traced only in his dreams, where rivers bent the wrong way and mountains shifted like breathing beasts. By the 4th night his path led him into the hollow vale, a cleft between hills where the air itself grew heavy, as though laden with memory. Mist clung low to the roots of the trees. There were no birds here, no insects, only the soft hiss of unseen embers. Marin felt warmth upon his face, though no flame burned. The vale's heart was a hollow ruin. Half-buried columns jutted like broken teeth from the earth, their stone blackened and cracked by ancient fire. The symbols etched upon them were neither Iliad nor Nordic, but something older, shapes that seemed to turn away when stared at too long. In the center of the ruin rose a dais of charred obsidian, upon which rested a bowl of fused glass. Within it burned a flame that gave no light, only shadow. As Marin stepped closer, the flame stirred, and the voice returned, clearer now, coiling through his thoughts. You crossed the threshold, little scholar. Few remember this place. Fewer still are welcomed. He fell to his knees before the dark fire, breath ragged, heart thrumming in his chest. Why me? A sound like laughter rippled through the air, though it held no joy. Because you listened, visions poured into him, glimpses of ages lost, a cult robed in crimson and ash, an empire of mortals who dared to crown their god, a Daedric prince cast from memory by their own kin. In the vision's heart stood the same flame, burning unseen, whispering to any who would not flee. Marin reached out. The flame licked his palm without pain. It felt like thought made real, vast, alive, and endless. My shrine remembers. My name stirs in your veins. Symbols seared into his flesh, glowing faintly before fading to faint scars. The flame dimmed, satisfied. Silence returned to the veil, heavy and holy. He rose, dizzy and trembling. Somewhere beyond this place he knew the path would lead to a deeper covenant. Yet as he turned to leave, he saw that the forest's edge had changed. The way he had come was gone. Only the trail ahead remained, winding into a darkness that smelled faintly of brimstone and roses. Chapter 3. The Covenant of the Void. The path wound deep beneath the Gold Coast hills, descending into veins of forgotten stone. Torches could not last in that place, their flames guttered as though starved of faith itself. Maren walked by the faint pulse beneath his skin, the burn-marked sigils that throbbed whenever he neared what called him. At last, he came to a cavern, vast as a temple. The walls shimmered with a dull, blood-colored sheen, as if the rock had once been molten and cooled only by sorrow. Pillars rose like ribs around a central altar of black crystal, its surface rippling faintly, as though breathing. There upon that altar lay a book bound in flesh the color of dusk. Its cover bore no script, only the faint pattern of veins that pulsed in time with Maren's own heartbeat. He hesitated, but the air pressed him forward. When he touched the book, the world folded inward, flame without heat, darkness without comfort. 1,000 whispers converged into one voice, deep as the void between stars. You have come where mortals do not tread. The voice was no longer only sound. It filled his lungs, his blood, his marrow. You seek knowledge. I offer power. But power is never given. It is shared through covenant, through purpose, through the unmaking of fear. Maren's hands shook. What must I do? You will bear what others cast away. You will walk as the vessel of what was forgotten, until memory itself bends. From the crystal altar burst a light of impossible hue, not white nor red, but something that hurt to name. It poured into him and he screamed, though his throat made no sound. He saw visions, oblivion skies bleeding over glass towers, a blade that fed upon thought, a figure of flame crowned in silence. I am Meridia once cast down, or Mephalah's whisper, or something older still, the voice intoned. I am the shape between their names. The light dimmed. Maren fell to his knees, the mark upon his palm now burning like molten gold. Around him the cavern changed, walls breathing, shadows watching. The book was gone. In its place a brand of smoke coiled up his arm, etching runes no scholar had ever known. When the silence returned, he heard his own heartbeat echoing not just in his chest but all around, as though the entire cavern pulsed in unison with him. He was no longer alone in his body. As he stumbled from the altar, a voice murmured behind his thoughts, We are bound. Walk, and I shall see through you. Outside the cavern, the night air was sharp with the scent of rain and burning myrrh. Lightning flickered across the horizon, but the thunder came from within him. The covenant was sealed. And somewhere far beyond mortal sight, a Daedric lord opened unseen eyes. Chapter 4. The Weight of Unholy Power. Weeks passed, yet time no longer felt real to Maren. The world seemed sharper, as if each moment carried too much meaning. The air hummed faintly wherever he went. Glass trembled at his passing. Candles bent toward him like flowers seeking strange light. He had become a vessel, though no mortal eye could see the flame now living behind his gaze. He reached the port town of Anvil beneath a bruised sky. The scent of salt and tar filled the air, mingled with the perfume of incense from the chapel of Dibella, where once he might have sought peace. Now every prayer he heard sounded hollow, as if spoken into a void already filled with a deeper, truer song. In the market square, rumors ran swift as river fish. They spoke of a wandering scholar whose shadow lingered even when he stood in the sun. They spoke of a faint ringing in the ears, a taste of copper and smoke wherever he walked. He heard these whispers and said nothing. At night, he wrote feverishly in the margins of his old notes, tracing sigils in ash that faded before dawn. The voice within, that serene, vast presence, spoke often now, guiding his thoughts like a patient tutor. They would bind the world in ignorance, it said, but you see its bones, you touch the marrow of its truth. Maren's reflection no longer moved in time with him. His dreams were filled with stars that bled color into one another, forming vast shapes of light that whispered his name. He awoke each morning trembling between reverence and fear. When he ventured into the Mages Guild hall, the air grew tense. The senior magister, a stern woman named Ilowen, fixed him with a wary gaze. "You've changed, Marin. Your aura burns strange. Tell me what you've meddled with." He smiled, too calm, too certain. "I have found a teacher older than the guild itself." Her spell flared before he could speak again, a ward of detection shimmering gold. But as its light touched him, it recoiled, shrieking like metal against glass. The ward shattered, and for an instant the hall was filled with the scent of ozone and roses, the mark of his unseen master. The mages fled in terror. Ilowen stood her ground, trembling. "You consort with oblivion," she whispered. Marin stepped closer, his voice soft and distant. "Oblivion consorted with me." He left the guild that night. Behind him, the tower's lanterns dimmed one by one, their flames bending toward the sea as though bowing. Upon the cliffs beyond Anvil, the voice returned quiet and pleased. "You are learning. The world will soon remember what it tried to forget." Marin gazed upon the horizon where the sea met the stars, and for the first time he saw not the moons of Nirn, but strange constellations burning through the firmament, shaped like a crown of flame. He whispered to the dark, "What happens when they know what I've become?" Then the voice murmured, "You will choose whether you are still mortal at all." Chapter 5. The choice that ends all bonds. The world had grown thin. Marin could feel it in the pulse of the earth, in the shimmer of the air before dawn, as if Nirn itself strained beneath a hidden weight. He wandered the borderlands of Calovia, following dreams more than roads, his steps guided by that silent companion who now lived inside the echo of every heartbeat. Storms gathered with unnatural fury. The sky no longer held its color, but swirled with bruised shades of violet and gold. In the thunder's roll, he could almost hear it. "Return to me." He reached the ruins of Vilsien Keep by twilight, a forgotten fortress now half swallowed by the roots of centuries. There, amid collapsed towers and the scent of wet moss, a shimmer waited, a tear in the world itself, its edge crackling like ice in fire. Beyond it, he glimpsed an impossible horizon, an ocean of light turned inside out, where shadows glowed and flame sang. "You have come far, vessel," said the voice, no longer distant, but rising from within him. "The gate trembles. You need only yield, and we shall remake this realm as one." Marin fell to his knees. He saw the truth then, all his wandering, all his visions, not as guidance, but as the slow claiming of his will. His flesh bore the sigils of his bondage, his soul thrummed with alien rhythm. Yet still, somewhere deep beneath the Daedra's presence, his mortal self endured, small, fragile, defiant. "Was I ever chosen?" he whispered, "or simply taken?" The reply came like thunder through his bones. "Chosen, taken. Such words mean nothing when eternity calls. You are the bridge, Marin. Step forward and end the illusion of separation." The rift widened. Winds poured from it, tasting of dust and starlight. He saw shapes moving within, countless, beautiful, terrible, the children of oblivion pressing against the veil. Their whispers promised everything: knowledge, peace, endless purpose. He could cross. He could become what no mortal had ever been, a creature of both realms, unbound by death, untouched by time. But then he remembered the sound of rain over Lake Rumari, the warmth of morning bells, the ink on parchment that once bled from his trembling hands. He remembered being human. Marin drew his dagger. The runes along his arm flared, screaming in the tongue of stars. The voice grew desperate. "Do not sever what I have woven." With one motion he drove the blade into his own palm, cutting through the mark that bound him. Light erupted, pure, blinding, terrible. The rift convulsed, folding upon itself like a dying breath. The presence howled, fading into silence. When Marin awoke, dawn had broken. The sky was clear, the air still. The mark was gone. Only a faint scar remained, shaped like a closed eye. He rose, weak but free, and turned toward the sun rising over Calovia's hills. The warmth on his face was real, untainted. He did not know whether the Daedric Lord was truly gone, or merely waiting. But he no longer listened for the whisper beneath the world. For the first time in months there was only his own heartbeat, and that at last was enough.